Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher at Sweetwater. Today, we're checking out what's new with Avid's Pro Tools. Let's get started. With the release of Pro Tools 2022.4, Avid has completely reconfigured the way they're presenting Pro Tools. We now have 3 tiers available: Artist, Studio, and Flex, and we're going to take a tour of what's included with each of those tiers. It's a much simpler way to organize Pro Tools. You'll know what version is going to be right for you and what you get in each version. We're also going to take a look at some of the new features and 2 new instruments that are included with Pro Tools. So to begin, as I mentioned, Avid has re-tiered Pro Tools, or reorganized the Pro Tools system. There now are 3 different packages that you can subscribe to. There's Pro Tools Artist, Pro Tools Studio, and Pro Tools Flex. Now, all 3 of these packages include many of the same features. You get everything you need for creating music, working with audio, and so on. All 3 packages include support for 32-bit 192 kilohertz audio. You get a free gigabyte of cloud storage. More than $2,000 worth of instruments and plugins are included with each package. You also get Celemoni's Melodyne 5 Essential for working with your tracks, and you get the all-new SynthCell and GrooveCell virtual instruments. Let's begin by looking at the Pro Tools Artist package. This is aimed at music creators, songwriters, and producers. You get 32 audio tracks, 32 instrument tracks, and you can record up to 16 tracks simultaneously. You can also have up to 32 aux tracks and 32 routing folders in your session, and up to 64 MIDI tracks. Pro Tools Artist includes support for native audio formats including ASIO, Core Audio, and Wasapi. More than 100 instruments and plugins are included, and you get all this for less than $10 a month. The next tier is Pro Tools Studio, which is aimed at professional music production. You get 512 audio tracks, 512 instrument tracks, and you can record up to 64 tracks simultaneously. Pro Tools Studio supports up to 128 aux tracks, as well as 128 routing folders per session. Each session can have 1,024 MIDI tracks, 128 VCA tracks, and 1 video track. More than 120 virtual instruments and plugins, and it has support for stereo, surround, and immersive audio, using formats including native formats, Core Audio, ASIO, Wasapi, as well as Pro Tools Carbon and Venue S6L. The top-tier Pro Tools level is Pro Tools Flex, which is aimed at audio post-production and high-end music creation. You get 2,048 audio tracks, 512 instrument tracks, and you can record up to 256 tracks simultaneously, depending on the audio hardware you're using. Each session can have up to 1,024 aux tracks, 1,024 routing folders, and 1,024 MIDI tracks. There's support for up to 128 VCA tracks and up to 64 video tracks. There's support for stereo, surround, and immersive audio formats using Core Audio, ASIO, Wasapi, Pro Tools Carbon, Venue S6L, as well as Pro Tools HDX and Pro Tools HD Native. The Pro Tools Flex bundle includes more than 120 virtual instruments and plugins, as well as advanced tools and workflows for post-production, such as SoundFlow Cloud Avid Edition. Finally, Pro Tools Artist and Studio includes standard support, while Pro Tools Flex includes Expert Plus support. Of course, we've just scratched the surface here. Whether you've got Pro Tools Artist, Studio, or Flex, you've got a complete suite of tools, no matter what audio production task you might be working on. But this release of Pro Tools is about more than just reorganizing into Pro Tools Artist, Studio, and Flex. You also get a bunch of new features and fixes, as well as 2 completely new virtual instruments. Among the features, I've got some favorites. One of those is the ability to assign custom keyboard shortcuts to the functions inside Pro Tools. So you now can assign whatever key command you want to just about any function inside the Pro Tools software. Other new features include Pro Tools Search, and we've also got a new dashboard that comes up when you create a new track or you launch Pro Tools. If we click Getting Started, we can see that dashboard. And here we've got learning tools to help guide you through Pro Tools. We've also got templates for making it fast and easy to get started with your sessions. Another new feature I really like is that when you create an aux track, it now comes up solo safed, which is the way you normally want those aux tracks set up for reverbs, delays, and so on. But you can defeat that by holding the Command key and clicking the solo button. We've got recording improvements to the hybrid engine when you're working with Pro Tools Carbon or Pro Tools HDX, Atmos improvements, support for Windows Wasapi drivers, as well as support for Monterey running on Mac. Of course, there are a lot of other new features in Pro Tools, but I want to jump over and check out the new virtual instruments that are included with Pro Tools, SynthCell and GrooveCell. To do that, I've set up a controller keyboard here. Let's check out what's happening with these 2 instruments. First up, we have SynthCell. Now, SynthCell is, as you'd expect, a synthesizer. It gives us a lot of power for creating a ton of different sounds. We've got 2 oscillators, 2 filters, a filter envelope, an amplitude envelope. We've got modulation sources. Down here we have a modulation matrix where you can route a variety of controllers to different destinations. We also have onboard effects, reverb, modulation, delay, and distortion. You can engage those or disengage those independently, and we have control over a variety of parameters for those too. Here's a quick demo of some of the sounds that are included with SynthCell. We've got bass sounds. We've also got effects. We've got lead sounds. We've got pads. We've got percussive sounds. We've got polysynths. And of course, there are tons more sounds, and you can create your own sounds very easily as well. But let's jump over and check out the arpeggiator. We can change to that view. So SynthCell gives you a ton of new timbral options for your productions. Now let's check out GrooveCell. GrooveCell gives us access to 16 different sounds simultaneously on the pads. You can easily assign whatever samples you want to the pads by just clicking the plus button. We have mute and solo for each pad. We can also clear samples, we can name the pads, and so on. And for each pad, we have a variety of different parameters we can adjust, whether it's volume, pan, pitch. We can work with the samples. We can route where it's going if we're using multiple outputs, up to 16 different outputs. We've got a filter. On page 2, we've got the ability to emulate other rhythm boxes, drum machines, consoles, and so on, as well as envelopes for volume and for pitch. On page 3, we can route the pad through drive presets as well as dynamics presets. So this would be saturation and distortion here, and this would be compression. We can also map the samples to different keys on a keyboard if we like. Beyond the pads, we also have a sequencer page that allows us to program up our grooves. And we have an effects page. We have overall master effects, an EQ, a distortion, and a compressor, and we also have 2 send effects, a reverb and a delay. You can choose to have multiple outputs or stereo output, and we can engage or disengage the send effects, which again are reverb and delay. Now once again, we've just scratched the surface of what SynthCell and GrooveCell can do. These are very powerful new instruments, and they're included free with all levels of Pro Tools, Pro Tools Artist, Pro Tools Studio, and Pro Tools Flex. I hope you enjoyed this quick look at Pro Tools Artist, Pro Tools Studio, and Pro Tools Flex. No matter whether you're working in a home studio, you're a singer-songwriter, you're a producer, you have a commercial studio, or you're doing audio post-production, there's a Pro Tools that's exactly right for you. And with the 2 new instruments and the new features, Pro Tools is more powerful than ever. If you have questions about Pro Tools or any other Avid products, be sure to contact your Sweetwater sales engineer. They can give you full info and make sure you have all your questions answered. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Mitch Gallagher at Sweetwater.